episode 329.
When you see businesses that are kind of seat of their pants type things, rarely are they wildly successful. Just because the systems aren't there, they don't have the consistency, and they can't succeed the same way every time because it's always a little bit different and it's never quite done the same way.
Welcome, aftermarketers, to Remarkable Results Radio. Listen to learn just one thing from today's episode on your journey to remarkable results. Hey, hello, welcome to the Remarkable Results Radio podcast. Carm Capriotto here. Now, Tom Ham has been a great contributor to the podcast, and with his years of experience as a shop owner and chief conductor at Automotive Management Network, I love to bring you Tom's perspective on business success. Talk about a learning curve. We're going to discuss fundamentals, systems, and employee wish lists, among others. Hey, a great discussion with Tom as we tear into a few of his very passionate topics. This episode is presented by Federal Mogul Motor Parts. Now, they are the reason you enjoy these great aftermarket interviews. When you need innovation and quality, you need Federal Mogul Motor Parts. Now, you know the brands: Moog, Felpro, Wagner Brake, Anco, Champion, Seal Power, FP Diesel, and more. They're the parts techs trust. Find out more. fmmotorparts.com, and thank you for supporting these brands. Hanging out with you socially on the web is a great thing. Find all my links at remarkableresults.biz/social. And a big shout out and thank yous to my new Facebook followers: Lane Kinney, Ron Kelly, Greg Caldwell, Jerry Knapp, and Stephen Gelman. And my new LinkedIn connections: Zachary Zadell, Wes Sprunk, and Jason Allen. Great to have you on board and engaged with the Aftermarket's premier talk radio. And big news about a select group of Town Hall Academy podcasts that are now available for AMI credit. If you're staying current with your AMI designation or working toward your professional designation, go to a special page, remarkableresults.biz/AMI, and see how listening to the Academy episodes can earn you AMI elective credit. Now let's dive into a general discussion with Tom Ham. Tom has been a great contributor to the Town Hall Academies, and I'd love to just sit and chat with him. He's opinionated, no doubt, but you can't argue with success. Tom is very willing to share his perspectives on success and can view the industry with wide eyes as the founder of Automotive Management Network, a 12,000-member resource for aftermarket professionals. Now, through AMN, Tom gets an opportunity to hear from the industry and conduct surveys that help serve up trends and insights to help you along your success journey. We're going to talk about basic blocking and tackling and the power of good systems and procedures, because if you're not improving, you're dying. Also, a clever idea of his to extract business improving ideas from his team, and 3 questions to ask yourself to discover if you can start to walk away and work away from your business, like from home. Find the show notes and talking points for this episode at remarkableresults.biz/E329. Now, let's go talk to Tom Ham. A warm welcome to Tom Ham, Automotive Management Network. How are you, Tom?
Good.
Hey, how's business?
Excellent. Having a great year.
Good for you. And it's not the first quarter's over with and you're booming, huh?
Oh, yeah. Things are looking up.
You must be doing a lot of things right. You know, you and I chatted, the lack of sticking to basic and fundamentals is probably what causes failure for so many, but probably not you. Give me some insight in that.
Basics. It's so easy to overlook the basics. And I think it's, especially after we've been in business for a while, it's very easy to get involved with the complex and the cool stuff and just forget the fundamentals and forget the basics.
You mean, so we're chasing ideas, or we're chasing things. Oh, maybe that'll work.
Yeah, I think especially you'll hear stuff, you'll read a book and you go to a conference and that's a really cool thing and it's involved and it's advanced. Nobody's done it before and so on and so forth. And it's often the fundamentals is where we end up dropping the ball because we figure, well, we've cleared the fundamentals, we've cleared the basics. We don't have to fool with that stuff anymore. We'll move on from there and kind of not worry about that anymore.
I always call that block and tackling.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Sports is a great way to do it. Anybody who watches a little bit of sports, you can watch baseball, football. Often you'll find out the championship game, when they get down to it, the Super Bowl, World Series, or whatever, often you'll find out the mistake that was made wasn't the complex hit and run play. It wasn't the trick play. It was somebody dropped the ball. In football, the receivers, and I swear you can't watch a single NFL game without seeing this at least once. The nice pass coming in good, and what does the receiver do? He looks downfield before the ball gets there. If the ball gets there, he misses it. Or it can be the shortstop who looks over at the runner a split second before that ball arrives, and it goes on by him or bounces off his glove. But what happens when we were little kids, we were first in the little football league, baseball, little league, that kind of thing. We're learning that. And about the first week we're in there, what's the coach telling us? Keep the eye on the ball. Keep your eye on the ball. And you learn to do that at a very young age, and it works very well. Suddenly you're learning how to play the game. And here these guys are making millions of dollars. What'd they forget to do? Keep their eye on the ball.
Great analogy. I love it. I mean, it so ties into business today. Is there a lot of intuition that comes with knowing the basics? I mean, are you supposed to just let the basics happen, don't fight it?
I think you have to keep reviewing them all the time. I think you have to have the systems in place, which we'll maybe talk about in a minute or two, to go back to those basics. So the technicians are reviewing them, the advisors are reviewing them, and they've got documentation and checklists and systems where they're forced to go back to the basics all the time. Because I don't know that it does come intuitively. People have all different personality types, and to some people it does come rather easily, and to other people it doesn't. Because the way their mind works, they're off in a totally different area. So I think it's with the personalities. Now you got me a little bit off into that area, and I'll just mention it for fun. You can hire 2 technicians on the same day, and you've got a little quality checklist of what happens when the car leaves. And they're both sharp guys. They're both have the same intelligence, the same IQ, but they have very, very different personalities. And what'll happen is you have this little quality checklist, and it's got a dozen things on it. You'll give that to them both the first day, and you'll make it part of their procedure where they have to check it off, maybe on a digital tablet. We used to be paper, now we're all digital. Technician number 1, by the time day 2 gets there, he can basically just zip this list off. He's got it memorized in his head. He can pretty much pencil whip it, if you will, because he actually covered all those things. He memorized it, and away you go. Technician 2, he's been there for 5 years. He has to refer to the checklist every time to make sure he gets all 12 things after 5 years.
You're saying that's a personality thing?
Yeah, it's a personality thing. Sure.
Because the person wants to get it absolutely positively right, who goes back to the tablet?
Different kinds of personality. The first kind of person would make a great accountant, for instance. He's got the details. He's very detail-oriented. He can memorize stuff, so on and so forth. The second kind of guy is more of he might be an entertainer or a singer or somebody who's very empathy-oriented. He's very much into personality. So all those details, they don't really register in his mind because they're secondary. So he has to go back to the list.
They want to go back to the list to get it right because they have chosen not to store it anywhere. They have chosen not to learn it.
It's difficult for them to learn it because of the way their mind works. Yes.
Got it. That does talk about systems, and basic fundamentals exist in a business today, any kind of business today. And you just mentioned it. Systems are mandatory for successful business. I think I'm paraphrasing what you just said. So if that's the key, can we actually stitch together basics and fundamentals to all the processes and systems that really drive a great service business today?
Oh, I think every business at any level, if you see, the more successful it is, the more systems you see. And those are not systems for the sake of somebody to follow a system. Sometimes the technicians or employees think, well, he's just got a checklist because he's into checklists and he just drives us nuts with the stuff. You can overdo anything. But if you have the fundamentals down and you have the checklists in place so they follow them, then you get the consistency. And that's what the systems are. When you see businesses that are kind of seat of their pants type things, rarely are they wildly successful. Just because the systems aren't there, they don't have the consistency, and they can't succeed the same way every time because it's always a little bit different and it's never quite done the same way.
Do you remember when you said, hey, we're gonna lock the systems down, we're going to write it down, we're going to create our procedures manual? Do you remember?
Yes.
Yeah, how long ago? 25 years ago? Were you an early adopter in business? Or did you say to yourself, it's getting a little loosey-goosey, we better tighten it up?
I started putting the systems together when I first got in business 40-some years ago.
Got it.
And I was working on them yesterday, too.
There's a lot of people today that are struggling in their business, say, for example, comebacks, quality, culture, all that stuff really has an effect on procedures, processes, systems, fundamentals. You did it day one. I'm a systems procedures kind of guy, too. I get it, Tom. And were you built like that, or did you just know that it was good business?
No, I was built like that. My personality is very much that way. Just to have those things, all the ducks have to be in a row, and that's just the way my mind works. In order to do anything, I have to do it that way.
So it was all right. So it was easy for you to implement. Give me some advice for the guys that are struggling to get at least to start, and if not, to take what they currently have and to improve on it.
What we don't want to do in business is when a situation comes up, we never want to approach that situation or what are we going to do with this more than once. We only want to have that happen once. And I really encourage people to do this. When something happens that's never happened before, a customer's never done that before, a technician's never done that before, and we go, what do we do? And we figure out a way to deal with it, and we stumble through it, et cetera, and then we move on. And that's the mistake. What we need to do is note that somewhere, go back in the office tonight, this weekend or whatever, write a policy to deal with that weird situation, add it to your manual. It's great we have computers nowadays, so we can change the manuals on a moment's notice. Make everybody aware of it. Give it to everybody at the next employee meeting. And now we have a system. And that's how you build these manuals. The manuals are custom built to your operation and what actually happens in your operation instead of everybody else's. But very key to do that instead of reinventing the wheel over and over and over again.
Okay, Tom, I get it. So if a situation comes up, you want to add it to your policy manual. But here I am. I'm a shop owner. I'm in it 5 years. I was a great tech. You know the drill. You know the stereotype. How do we start? I mean, do we really get together with the team and say to everybody, listen, let's take this. How are we going to do inspections? How are we going to do oil changes? How are we going to do this? And do we start writing this on a yellow pad, typing it into? Give me an idea. How do we start?
You do it one at a time. I'm a little bit different in how I address this compared to the way some people. They envision sitting down, and we're going to sit down for a weekend or whatever, and we're going to start creating this policy manual. And I'm going to do that a little bit different. I'm actually going to sit there with a blank piece of paper, and I'm going to tell the guys, we're going to create a policy manual. And they're going to say, what's going to be in it? I said, I'm not quite sure yet, but we're going to do that. And the day goes on, and we get to about 11 o'clock in the day, and something happened there that we have to make a decision on, and that's page 1 of the manual.
Ah, that's a clever idea.
And that's how we create our manual. We do it by the situation. Trying to create these things that are generic, you have all these different businesses, different people in them, so on and so forth. And when you create this, you're often creating, if you try to create it ahead of time, you're often spending a lot of time creating something that nobody in your business will need, ever, just because of the nature of what you are and what you do and the people that you have. So it's going to be a little bit unique, and it just works really good if you do it as it goes, but you need to religiously do it as it goes. You can't let it go. You have to keep up on it. That's the way we do it. We add policies. We add a policy or two every week. And I'm not talking about complex policies, simple ones.
Simple things that you had never even thought of that are situational. I get it. But I think it's a great idea for anyone who doesn't have a manual is to sit down with a team and says, I love it. We're going to create a policy manual. Let's start. And you start by finding one situation and then adding it to the book and then adding it to the book. So it's really a team project?
Sure. You can sit down with the entire staff and say, what do we need a policy on? And most employees, they're hard to get going at employee meetings. They'll sit there quietly. But you encourage somebody, and somebody will say, well, that thing never gets taken care of, and we're always behind on it. It really doesn't get done right, and so on and so forth. You say, good, we'll make a policy on that. And we'll add that to the list. What else you got, guys?
I'm talking with Jonathan Cichelli, a technical product specialist with Federal Mogul Motor Parts. Now, you're visiting shops every day. So when you put product in the hands of the technicians and service advisors, what are they saying?
Going back to Federal Mogul's long-term presence in the industry, they already know the product. And some of them we don't have to say much about. It's the newer product, the latest innovations that we come out with that just blow people away.
So, Jonathan, you take that brand new OEX pad and you put it into the hands of a technician. What happens?
They look at it and are kind of speechless for a couple seconds, and they just can't deny that it's an awesome-looking product, and they can't deny that it's going to work fantastic on their vehicles.
Now, another phenomenal product line that is just one of the most iconic brands in the entire industry is Moog. Now, there's a lot going on with Moog.
The newest thing with Moog is going to be, I think, the most important thing to the shops is the newer design ball joint that we created, and that was off of technicians' responses to a boot design.
That's that compression-loaded ball joint with the pre-installed integral dust boot?
Absolutely. And as soon as I pull that out of a box and show a technician or a shop owner, they just were like, this is amazing.
So, Jonathan, would you say that you're a champion for Federal Mogul Motor Parts and all the premium products?
Absolutely.
And a champion for all the training?
I'm very big on training. I've always been in training since I've been in the professional field. So just to come back and support on the other end has just been an awesome experience.
Federal Mogul Motor Parts' Garage Gurus is your go-to source for the vehicle training, technology, and answers you need to keep your next job on track. On-site, online, or on demand, the Gurus are here to help keep your business and your career on the road to success. Visit fmgarageguru.com. So you said you were working on something as of today, and I hear this a lot, that the policy manual, the procedures manual is a forever document. It's always being worked on. Give us an idea of something you've recently done that was an improvement.
One thing we did recently, and so often now we're just going to circulate, we're going to come right back to the basics because that's just what we're doing here again. Occasionally there's a little bit of confusion, especially you get new technicians in what order the services are in. And we kind of figure, well, if you've got 6 services on a repair order, you start at the top and go to the bottom, right? Maybe, not necessarily. It depends on how much of how the person's mind works again. So what we did, and it's simple, I'm sure other shops do it, is we have a certain order we want them in. We want the brake inspection done before the oil change and just stuff like that. So we number the things 1 through 6. Doesn't sound real complex, but we never used to do it, and we added that on, and now it's a little bit easier for the techs to follow.
Nothing in your computer software will push that into the repair order in the correct order, will it? So you have to number it?
We can push it in an order, but it's lacking the number that you actually type in the field. So the technician looks at that item and sees it's the third thing that he's going to do because it's number 3.
Okay, and it's number 3 because you've defined that as a policy in the company.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
What I was thinking of is that if your software was smart enough to know how to rank it.
We can certainly rank it, but it won't put numbers on it. Let's put it that way.
Okay, I get it. That's a smart move, Tom. And you discovered that they need to be in the proper order because issues have arisen over the years that say this before that?
Yeah, exactly. Put a little thing in place recently, and there's just another one of these simple policies that just come to mind. When you get an email, this is mainly for the front folks, owner, service advisor, administrative people, you'll get emails from customers requesting various things. And you look at that email and you think, well, I'm going to have to look it up. It's going to take a little bit for me to figure it out. I'll put it on my to-do list here. I'll make sure I take care of it, which is good. But now we'll take it one step further and we'll click on reply and say, Fred, I'll get back to you soon with the answer on that. He's going to get 2 emails instead of waiting 4 or 5 hours or so to the next morning to get a response.
Not knowing it got through, not knowing that you read it. I love that. That is a very simple policy change, all to do with the customer.
Yes. It's hundreds of little things like that go together in this manual. And we take them little bits and pieces like that. And we feed them to everybody. Here's what they are. We'll talk about them. We'll alter them. We'll get editing from the staff. How do you want to do it a little bit differently? It really works rather well as long as you've got a reasonably cooperative people. I mean, if you've got obstinate people, it doesn't work. But as long as the people are reasonably cooperative, it works real well.
So, Tom, what you're really driving at is the ability to scale your business so you don't have to be there.
Well, that's true. Yeah, we're already in that position.
When you're away and you're at, if you will, the winter headquarters, which is just so exciting to know that you have a winter headquarters.
It's called the Southern Command.
Very good. I knew you'd have a name for it somehow.
Yeah.
You know that based on the last time you guys have adjusted policy, that the place is running just like you'd like it to run.
Matter of fact, I think I'm almost surprised every day on how well it does run. And it's a combination of, certainly that's not purely the systems. You got to get good people who are cooperative and they all want to try to, push the wagon forward, et cetera. It amazes me sometimes how well it does run and how few problems do occur.
You said a mouthful. Got to have the right people so they can drive the right processes. Let's talk about one other thing, and that's about working with your people, because you just mentioned your people. Do you ever sit down and ask your people to create, a wish list of the things that they have going on in their world?
That's one big thing that we really got into a few years ago. It has worked better than we anticipated, and we have fun with it. I enjoy it. It's almost like Christmas sometimes. Usually towards the end of the year, we'll ask everybody to create a wish list. I'd like you to put 10 things on it. Although if you can't think of 10, you can 7 or 8 or 6 or whatever you can come up with. If you can think of 12 or 15, give me the 12 or 15. And we make it clear. Now, this is not people right away think, well, which tools, which equipment do they want? Well, certainly that's part of it. But if you think we need different furniture in the customer area, if you think we need to do something with the landscaping, if you think the technicians need exercise equipment, if you think we need a different flavor of Keurig coffee, I really don't care what it is. It can be anything, because I can always say no. Open your mind up, and whatever you think would be a positive thing at the facility and help in some way or be a neat thing, put it on your list. Then we take the list and we make it into one big list and kind of publish it, show it to everybody. And then we'll start picking them off. Now, one critical thing is you got to maybe somebody's list is really strange for whatever reason, but you got to do 1 or 2 or 3 things off of everybody's list. Even if you look at it and say, that's silly, you still got to do 1 or 2 or 3 things just so everybody has some input into what's going on here. Maybe they're not big things, but let's get everybody in. And then as we go through the year, we'll keep that list. We'll cross things off as we go, because we maybe have 30, 40 things now when we've pared the whole thing down, put it together, and with the overlap and so on. And there'll be things this year. I think the largest thing on there was a lift, and the smallest thing on there was fixing a display that's up in the front room that shows how timing belts work, which took 5 minutes. And all these different things are on there, and we just pick them off, and it's kind of fun. It'll come in. I sometimes don't tell them. I just have the tool guy drop it off, or it'll just come UPS, and they'll open the box and they'll go, "Oh, wow, cool!
Yeah, we got something on our list."
Yeah, that was on our list.
So that was that's that Christmas feeling that you get. Yeah. It's all related to the business, not personal, just to the business.
Oh, this is all business related in one way or another. They just wanted what we just got last week. The way the weather is around here, we can't. It's a little early, but what they wanted an iced tea maker. So it came last week, and they put it together, and they've got it all set up, and they've got all the extra ice cube trays in the freezer and so on and so forth, because it takes a gazillion ice cubes to do this. And they got their Lipton tea and so on and so forth, and all their fixings. And as the weather gets warmer, they'll enjoy that. But they really wanted that. Several of them wanted an iced tea maker. So it's in place. They got it. We got $50 into the thing with the tea and everything else. It's a big deal to them. Well, they love it.
Can't wait for it to be 90 in Grand Rapids.
Yeah, that didn't happen very often, but
all right, so 80, and so we got iced tea. I love it.
Yeah, there you go.
I love it. Well, you started this how long ago?
We started doing that. I think this is probably our 4th year. I would say that we've done it informally, kind of what do you guys need type thing for a long time. A few years ago here, 3-4 years ago, we actually started to do a formal thing where there's formal lists that go out, and they have to turn them in, and we have the lists all printed and so on and so forth. Specifics. So it's a system now that works really well. I enjoy it. I think they enjoy it, and I'll tell you, it'll save you a lot of money especially if you're an owner who tends to be a tool junkie. Our shop does not have a ton of equipment compared to most shops, because if you go in most shops nowadays, you kind of walk around, nose around back there, you'll find pieces of equipment. You can run your finger over it and you can say, that hasn't moved in 6 months. Yeah, but the owner thought we needed one. The techs didn't, so they don't use it. It was $4,500 and it's back there in the corner and rots. Owners tend to do this because they see gadgets. They go to the trade show. They saw this cool thing or whatever, and they went out and bought it. And the techs go, I don't want that. So most of our equipment, with very few exceptions, is something that they wanted, because when they want it and they pick it, guess what? They use it. And if we have stuff sitting around there for a long time and they say we don't use it anymore, we get rid of it.
Smart. Love the idea. Back to the block and tackling, the fundamentals thing. So many shop owners struggle with just moving the ball in the right direction, just finding their way. I always call it due north, or get on the northbound train. Sometimes we struggle because not every move we make is a touchdown, using the sports analogy.
This is something that I have slowly learned over the past few years, and it's been one of the most enjoyable things, I guess, in business or life or whatever you want to call it. I had a tendency, and I think there's other people like me will often have a tendency, is you walk into a situation. You pull open the file drawer, and you got all these file drawers. Hopefully you're going away in our paperless world nowadays. But you go, nobody's gone through this file cabinet in like 15 years, and somebody ought to do that. Gosh, that sounds like a fun thing to do some weekend, is just come down here and go through that stupid file cabinet.
Wait a minute, would that be like a root canal?
Yeah, kind of like that. So I thought about it one day, and this little light bulb went off, and I said, you know what I'm going to do? When I come in the morning, I'm going to open that drawer. I'm going to take one file folder out of it. I'll put it on my desk. I go through it, clean it up, relabel it, put it back in the drawer, put a marker so I know where I was, and I'll do another one tomorrow. And I never took more than one file. Didn't take 2 or 3. I took 1. And there were a bunch of file cabinets, and I don't know, probably took a year and a half, and the whole job was done, and there was no pain to it at all. Another thing that we'll do is we'll do it with the inventory. We'll do it with the toolbox. Well, you got all these shop tools around the toolboxes. You open a drawer and you say, somebody needs to go through this toolbox. Or you can go through one drawer a week, and after a few months, somebody's gone through the whole toolbox and cleaned it all up, and your project got taken care of. And I think the way you apply that a little bit more with a management situation, this gets a little bit more complex. But let's take our employee Bob, and we look at Bob, and we're going to review Bob, and there's 5 issues here that Bob needs to fix. They're not maybe at the level where we're going to fire them, but added up they are. And so they're not little things. They need to be taken care of. And we sit down with Bob, and we talk about it, and we review them, and he understands it. And we get 30 days down the road here, and one of them's fixed, and the other 4, he really hasn't done anything with. Our immediate reaction is, well, that was a failure. Or was it? Because now Bob only has 4 problems. 30 days ago, he had 5. The one's off the table. We'll have a review with him in a little while. We'll talk about the 4 problems. Maybe it's going to take a year to pick them all off. I don't know. Maybe it's going to take 5 months. I don't know. But the point is we're moving the ball forward a little at a time. So often I think we look at things and we say, we got to fix everything. The parts room is a mess, so we need to entirely redo the parts room. Or we could do one shelf at a time. So as far as the employees go, somebody say, well, that kind of gives the employees the permission to not follow the things you want them to do. Well, yes and no. It kind of does, but it kind of doesn't either, because we know how quickly our employees are going to respond to those things, and how fast you respond is going to dictate your compensation also. So if you want to drag it out, you go ahead and drag it out, but we're going to compensate you accordingly. Somebody who gets all 5 taken care of the first 30 days is going to compensate more.
You're talking about incremental improvements.
It's how things get done. I think in so many situations, they get done by taking a little piece and really focusing on that in a real world thing that I've had a number of people tell me they had success with, and I read it back in a book many years ago. An organization, they said in your office, and you know what offices look like. I mean, you've been in the shop owners' offices. And they said, in your office, make sure you have some kind of a table or credenza or wing of your desk or whatever you want to call it that is behind you, 180 degrees behind you. And you keep everything on that table and desk. And you go over there and you take one item and you put it in front of you and you kill that one. And then we'll go take another, because the way our mind is, our mind sees that and goes, it's like Finding Nemo with Dory is kind of, this the way she's always going, what,
yeah.
Which way?
Cluttered, the old cluttered cliche.
Yeah. And it makes management very difficult. All these things, what they're doing is that you're making management easier by following some simple rules.
Incremental improvements. In fact, it's a great piece of a business culture to constantly be looking for those little levels of improvement, which it kind of almost circles back to what we were talking about in the beginning, about the process improvements that happen all the time. So you're an incremental guy.
Well, and when you do things incrementally, what never happens is radical big changes in the business. Because big changes upset people. They upset their world and their system. So if you're just making little changes here, but you're making regularly, that big change doesn't happen. People are more comfortable. They're in their comfort zone. They can better deal with it. Create an office away from the shop. And somebody says, oh, gosh, I don't want to do that. I'll be working 100 hours a week instead of 80. And that's not what I'm talking about. In the first place, 80 is too many. You got to get that down to a reasonable number. So let's say 60 just for fun. Let's pick the number 60. If you're working 60 hours now, I don't want you to work another 20 hours at home. I want you to work 50 hours at the shop and 10 hours at that home office. I want you to get your butt out of there early. I want you to go in some days late, maybe some days not in at all, and just work from home. Nowadays, with all the technology we have, you're just like you're in the next room. It doesn't matter whether you're 1,500 miles away, like I often am, or whether you're just across the parking lot in a different building. But you work from there. It really lets you get a lot of stuff done in a very short period of time. It lets you focus. It makes the business more enjoyable because you're not in the middle of the fire going on all the time.
Excellent advice. I mean, it all has to do with scaling. It has everything to do with, go back to reading the E-Myth book and understand that you really need to scale your business, and the business is more valuable if you're not the centerpiece.
Oh, amen. Boot
yourself out of the business and work from home or from Southern Command.
Well, and that's just it. Nowadays, we've got our instant messaging, we've got our camera systems and everything else, and it's almost like you're there. And you'll find out that if you get it set up really well, you can probably do 80, even 90% of what you normally do at the shop, actually not at the shop. And it's just more relaxed. It's just a much more fun way of doing it. We plan on doing a lot of that soon.
So, question. People are going to be listening to this saying, well, Tom is speaking Disney to me. This is just figments of imaginations. There's no way I will ever... I can't even imagine myself being able to do that because I am so buried. Maybe the thought is I've buried myself in my business. How do I get out? And can we come back and talk about that in a different episode?
Oh, that'd be fun.
We need to save so many of the businesses that are out there that are struggling. There's the top 10%, top 15%, and there's of course the lower tier, but there's so many quality guys that care and are passionate that are in that 60% in the center of our world, who are finding business coaches that are listening to people, listening to the podcast, reading articles, and looking and thinking and hearing and saying, I have all this great insight, but how do I pull a lever? How do I get started? And when they hear people like you, 40 years in the business, give them almost the marching orders is, will I ever be able to do this? That's the thing I worry about. And we've got to get them to do that, Tom. That's the point.
Yeah, there's everybody, of course, all kinds of business, but certainly automotive, is we're so tied in. We have to have our hands in everything that goes on. Is one thing, or the other thing is the technician that we hire has to do it exactly the same way that we've done it, which is, and I'll say to somebody, well, let me ask you 3 questions. As far as how things are all going at the shop, are they doing anything illegal or immoral? No. Are the customers happy? Yep. Is it profitable? Yep. Then maybe you ought to just keep your hands off and just leave the whole thing alone. because those are the bottom lines, aren't they? Now, the thing is, I know these shop owners, they go back there and they see some guy, they see a tech they hired, he's doing a brake job, and they're just cringing because that isn't the way you do it. But, if it doesn't come back and the customer's complaining and the brakes don't squeak when it's done, it must have been an okay way to do it. It just wasn't your way.
All right, it's a great start of the next podcast. That we got to sit down and we got to talk about how do I get myself up and out of the business and back into the office, and then of course ultimately to Southern Command. Yes,
sir. We got a lot of room down there at Southern Command. There's plenty of room to build.
Tom Ham, Automotive Management Network. Hey, you do some great surveys. I'd love to have you come back. You are so big into SMS systems. I mean, I'd just love to have you come on maybe once a quarter and do a few things with us.
Oh, we'd love to do that. Yeah, our surveys. Make sure you look on our site. Our surveys are not for fun. Our surveys are meant to be management tools so you can help make decisions by going through the surveys.
How big's your membership?
We're between 12 and 13,000.
Excellent. It's a great resource. I encourage everyone to get on it. I spend time there. Actually, I post podcasts there, so thank you for letting me do that.
We appreciate it. It's good material. We take material from everybody and share it.
Thanks, Tom.
You bet.
Hey, thanks again, Tom Ham, for bringing your passion to help spark ideas for our listener. Good pointers. Hey, if you love the interview and you got something from it, no doubt you have a friend who would also benefit. Don't hoard. Tell a friend about Remarkable Results Radio. Now, you can find the show notes for this episode with Tom Ham at remarkableresults.biz/E329. You'll also find a link to Tom's previous episodes. Hey, isn't it great to slow down for less than an hour and listen to the premier automotive aftermarket podcast? So much to learn, so many ideas and insights to consider and implement. Oh yes, that's the key. You must implement your ideas. We sometimes get stuck in the knowing-doing gap. Find the power to implement, and you'll be glad you did. And finally, a word from Winston Churchill. Success is not final. Failure is not final. It's the courage to continue that counts. I'm glad you've become a loyal listener and appreciate the wisdom you find in every interview.
Thanks for being on board to listen and learn from the premier automotive aftermarket podcast. Until next time.